Now we're going to talk about Zacks Insider Trader, the trading service that buys stocks when the insiders are buying shares of their own company. Editor of the service, Tracy Reinick, here with me to elaborate more on this and help you better understand it. Tracy, we're talking about, when we say insiders, we're not talking about the illegal insiders, right?
Right. There's two kinds of insiders. There's the illegal kind, which is what everybody pretty much knows about. That's the stuff that's always in the news, and that's where, someone works at a company and they tell their brother-in-law that the company's acquiring some other company, but it hasn't been made public yet. The brother-in-law goes out and buys the shares of the stock. The news comes out, the stock goes up, the brother-in-law sells it for all this money. The SEC usually handles cases like that. That's the bad kind.
Right.
But there is another kind of insider trading that is the legal kind, and that is when the company insiders actually purchase and then disclose the sales or purchase or sales of the shares. And that's perfectly legal. And that's what we're going to be trading on in this service. This is a shorter term holding service. So we're going to be holding for a couple weeks to a couple months, depending on market conditions. The insiders themselves have to hold for about 6 months. So it's not a quick in and quick out thing for the most part. I mean, there might be a few examples where we might be trading that quickly, but it's a little bit longer hold period, but not years and years. We're also going to be holding about 5 to 9 positions, so it's a fairly small portfolio. And it's a long only, so I get that question a lot, why aren't you shorting? But it's long only. And, it's going to be just more condensed than what you would think it might be.
So what exactly is, for those who don't know, a company insider?
Right, this is the other question I always get too. The company insider is an officer or a director or someone who owns 10% of the shares. For the purpose of the portfolio, we're mainly going to be focusing on the ones that are the officers or the directors and not really the 10% ownership. But you always hear about the CEO or the CFO buys. It's always those in the news, some CEO bought $1 million worth of shares, or sometimes we've seen it as like $100 million worth of shares. But you don't hear as much about the other kind of officers that are out there. That's like the general counsel, the head of HR, it might be the vice president of operations in China or Latin America, and those I find to be much more interesting. Not to say you can't have winners or good news with when the CEO is buying, but when an officer who is at a slightly lower level is buying, I see it as more of a better signal. It's a little bit harder to find those buys, but any of those people are considered to be officers, especially by larger companies.
And insider transaction information is published. It's made available to the public on various websites on the internet. How are you going to be tracking them?
Well, that's the thing. A lot of people see those lists. Like I've seen them on various financial websites, this week's insider transactions.
Right.
And so what are we getting from the insider trader then if I can just go to those websites and get, all these transactions that are going on out there?
Right.
Well, there's pretty many insider transactions that occur. Mainly what you have to do is, by law, the directors and officers have to file a Form 4. And that comes out when they buy or they sell, and that has to be filed within 2 days of any kind of transaction. So that gets filed, the information comes out there, and that's how these lists are generated. But who wants to, weed through all of this information? I mean, it's put on the SEC website, but I've looked at it, and
it's a lot of reading.
Yeah, there's a lot of transactions that go on. Some are going to be sells, which aren't as interesting, at least for our purposes. And some are also purchases by either awards, like they're given the stock, or options, and you have to weed through all of that. So really what the insider trader is doing is weeding through all of that garbage. We're getting the best transactions that the insiders are making using the Zacks rank. We're going to be buying 1s, 2s, or 3s. And then we're putting valuation metrics on there and other little secret sauces to get only the best stocks that the insiders are buying. And that's also why we're keeping the portfolio, relatively small, because we're looking for only the top purchases.
Okay. So what about investors who happen to look into the portfolio, they're new to the service, and they see that the portfolio has a good number of stocks in it that you bought a couple of weeks back prior to their looking at the portfolio. right? So
Right.
what should they do?
I get this question all the time. You know, they join and they see, oh, there's already 7 stocks in there, and you bought 2 or 3 of them 3 months ago, and it's up 25%. What do
Yeah,
I do?
right.
If it's still in the portfolio, there's a reason it's still in there. So first of all, I would go and look at the commentary and see if I've said anything like, oh, we might sell this week, or you know, this is on its last legs, or I'm giving it a few more days before we get out, or we're selling this. See if there's anything there, and if there isn't, then that means I still like the stock and you should be buying all the positions. I know a lot of people don't, you know, they might not have the firepower to buy everything. That's why this portfolio is, you know, it's a little more short-term oriented, so hopefully we'll be getting new picks in there if you're only patient just a little bit. But if it's in there, there's a reason it's in there.
So there is daily written commentary that goes with the service?
Yes, this is a daily service, so you know we'll be up on everything that's going on, and there's probably going to be intraday alerts that are sent out too, depending on what's going on with market conditions and earnings season and things like that.
Okay. So you've emphasized the fact that you're going to be looking for buys
Right.
so far. But what about insider sells? Are you going to be shorting those?
Well, I get this question all the time too. No, we're not shorting the sells, and people always wonder like why. There's the CEO selling this big chunk, or you know all these insiders are suddenly selling, and the reason for that is it's not as clear cut with the sells. I mean, you may think you know why that CEO is selling that big chunk. But really, his daughter's getting married this summer, and he needs the money to go pay for the wedding, you know? Or,
It happens.
Right. Or, you know, some child is going to college, they need the tuition.
Right.
Or we want to buy a second house in the Florida Keys, and so we're going to cash this out.
Needs
So
a new boat, whatever.
yeah, exactly. So you don't really know why the sales are going, and have nothing to do with the fundamentals of the company. So we could be thinking, oh, you know, something bad is happening there. We go and we short it. Really, nothing bad is happening there. It's
That's a good
just
point.
these personal circumstances of the insiders. So the buy side I like so much better because really you're only buying if you're greedy. You're buying because you're seeing really good things happening at your company. You're excited. You think if I buy more, I'll make more money, and that's the only motivation, really. So the buys is just much more straightforward.
All right, and so we're going to look forward to talking with you periodically at the old video ranch here as
Yes.
you provide periodic video updates on Insider Trader
Yep.
here at Zacks. In the meantime, if you have questions that you would like to ask Tracy about this service, insidertrader@zacks.com is the email address that you should use. Insidertrader@zacks.com. Tracy always reads all of her email and responds to as much of it as she can. With Tracy Reineck, I'm Terry Ruffalo.